What's up, everybody? My name is Tucker. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about 6 NBA teams that could surprise you this season. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like rating on it. Check out my socials at the top of the screen as well, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I've got 6 teams on this list here, and for either positive or negative reasons, these could be possible surprise teams for this upcoming season. Teams that do either better or worse than most people are expecting them to do. First up on the list, I've got the Cleveland Cavaliers. I've been holding back on including them in a list or talking about them in a video, but I think in potentially a very positive way, Cleveland could be a surprise team. Now, maybe there are a lot of people out there that are paying a lot of attention to Cleveland because they bring in Evan Mobley, because of the Kevin Love situation being weird, because they bring in Lauri Markkanen, and they could look at this team and be like, hey, yeah, they could be interesting, but I'm not going to guarantee anything because it's the Cavs, right? Traditionally, if the Cavs don't have LeBron James on the roster over the last 20 years, they're not any good. That's just kind of how it is. However, this upcoming season is probably the best chance they've had in a while of actually being a half-decent basketball team and potentially compete for a play-in spot, which I think if by the end of the year the Cavs are competing for a play-in spot, not only is that a win and a positive thing for this organization, but that would probably surprise a good amount of people. The Colin Sexton, Darius Garland thing in the backcourt, I think you've continued to see growth there. And I think it's also interesting that there could be a potential trade involved there as well. I like Garland a lot. Sexton he's interesting, but I'm not sure how much he contributes to winning. But still, there's talent there. You've got a Okoro on the wing, former high draft pick, should continue to develop as an offensive player. He's a very good defender. And then that front court rotation is really, really interesting. If Cleveland wants to be a team that slows it down a little bit and really, attacks the rim in the half court and defends the rim well defensively, they could be a very, very, very good team relative to their own expectations. Now, if they want to run up and down the floor and try and be this crazy up and down team, I don't think that fits their style. I know they've got some athletic bigs and Jared Allen and Evan Mobley and Lauri Markkanen can be decent in transition, but just you've got to keep, at least one of those guys on the floor at all times. I would like to see them slow it down, really use that size to their advantage in the half court. And I honestly think this could be a play-in team this season. Now, they very easily could win 20 games and be a disaster, but they're a team I'm keeping an eye on as a possible good, surprising team. Next up now on the list, the Portland Trail Blazers, in a negative way, potentially could be a surprise. I think most people right now are penciling in Portland right where they normally are, somewhere between that 7 and 10 seed, possibly a play-in team. Maybe you want to pencil them potentially as the 6th seed. Portland is just there. They always exist. They always make the first round of the playoffs, and for the most part, they don't do much after that. However, they could be experiencing a significant amount of issues this season. There's going to be a ton of pressure and stress on this team to be good in the beginning of the year. If they aren't, the Lillard stuff is only going to get louder. They've got a first-year head coach who's never been a head coach before in the NBA. They've got some guys that could have some injury issues, guys like Yusuf Nurkic, CJ McCollum that missed time last year. And just outside of Lillard, they don't have that good of a roster, nor did they really improve it from the one the year before. And you could argue the West is even better this season, top to bottom, than they were last year. So if there's any kind of slip in the play of Damian Lillard because of the circumstances of their season, or those circumstances potentially having a huge negative impact on Portland, or just the possibility that things do go poorly and then they trade away Lillard, I'm not very high on this Portland Trail Blazers team. I wouldn't be surprised to see them, be like the 9 or 10 seed, but then not actually make the postseason. I think the West is good. I think teams like Minnesota, maybe even New Orleans, they're really going to be trying to make the playoffs, and that can potentially push a team like Portland out. I'm not going to bet against Dame. I think most people are just doing Portland will be good this year thing and just penciling them in. And I think there could be a surprise potentially on that front. Next up, Indiana, in a positive way. I think Indiana is a team that people are kind of sleeping on a little bit. The upgrade from their former head coach to Rick Carlisle is significant. If they're healthy, they've got like a really, really strong 8 to 9 man rotation they can put out there on any given night. They can survive if Sabonis misses 2 weeks because of a sprained ankle, or Malcolm Brogdon misses a couple of weeks. They've got at every single position, guard, wing, big, they've got players that can step up and save you a game on any given night. And during an 82-game long regular season, that can be enough sometimes just to get you to potentially the 5th seed. And after this team missed the postseason last year, I think they're kind of off the radar a little bit. There's a possibility they can make a trade, whether it be Simmons or otherwise. A ton of different options on this roster at every single position. And again, the upgrade at the head coaching position, I don't think can be understated. Rick Carlisle can potentially do wonders for this team. He could be re-energized in a new spot. And I absolutely think they're a legit playoff team. And for some people, I do think that could be a bit of a surprise. Again, just kind of based off how Indiana finished last year. Next up, the Chicago Bulls, potentially in a negative way. I've mentioned this a few times. I'm not sold on Chicago as this like dark horse conference finals team. I think there's a lot of excitement, and rightfully so. I mean, they certainly made splashes. They brought in a ton of guys in free agency: Lonzo Ball, DeMar DeRozan, Alex Caruso. They got Vucevic from last year. They've got Levine from last year. When I look at the roster, I don't see it. I don't see what everybody else sees. I know how good Zach LaVine is. I know that Lonzo Ball is a really nice fit alongside him as an on-off ball guard. I understand what DeMar DeRozan can do as a scorer. Alex Caruso is a good bench option. I love Patrick Williams. Nikola Vucevic is a good player at the 5 spot. I just don't see how it all works. DeRozan can't space, but Vucevic can, but he's not very good defensively. Williams is the only good defender that's potentially going to start this year. Like, offensively, yeah, like they're obviously going to be good, but to get through an entire 82-game regular season, you can't just outscore everybody. And I'm not saying they're going to miss the playoffs, but I think a lot of people are like, yep, Chicago, 4th seed in the East, 5th seed in the East. When you go and look at the listed teams in the Eastern Conference, the top 6 is brutal. Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Philly's still going to be a factor with or without Simmons. Atlanta is probably going to be better. Then there's other teams that could be in the mix as well. Chicago certainly is involved there, but the Knicks, Indiana, who we just talked about, I wouldn't be surprised if this is like a 7th seed. Now, granted, Chicago is desperate to make the postseason, and if they do make the postseason, that's absolutely a win for them. Miami's another team, by the way, that I didn't mention in that top 6 or 7. I'm not convinced that even if their roster is fully healthy for the entire season, that this is a top 6 roster in the Eastern Conference, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them finish that way. And again, I think because of the hype around this team, that would be a surprise for a lot of people. Next up, the Charlotte Hornets. I have this as a potentially positive thing. I don't think people understand where Charlotte was at in the standings when Gordon Hayward and LaMelo Ball got hurt last year. They were legitimately like a top 5 team in the East from a record standpoint when those guys got injured. And yeah, maybe it's counting on a lot for Gordon Hayward to play an entire healthy regular season. But I just think they're being kind of slept on a little bit. I think they could pretty easily be like a top 7, top 6 team potentially in the East, depending on how things fall with injuries and things like that. And again, I think that would be a surprise for them to be a legitimate, real playoff team. I think would be a surprise for a lot of people. Love LaMelo. I love Gordon Hayward. I think Terry Rozier is going to continue to have a good year. They've got another guard off the bench now on Book Night that can be good for them. They've got tons of options on the wing, whether it be Bridges or PJ Washington in the front court. They've added certainly a ton of different options at the 5 spot for them potentially, which was an issue for them last year with just Zeller running out there every single night at the 5 spot and a little bit of Biyombo sprinkled in there. Like, they certainly have a good amount of depth options, a possibility for a trade as well. I'm not saying that Charlotte is going to be the 4 seed in the East or anything, but I am saying that if they're healthy, they're much, much better than I think most people would give them credit for. And then last up on the list is the San Antonio Spurs, potentially in a negative way. I think a lot of people are looking at the Spurs team and thinking, well, it's Popovich. They'll figure it out. They'll win 40, 45 games. They'll potentially be in the running for the play-in. Honestly, like, the Spurs might be the least talented team in the entire Western Conference. Now, that might not stop them from winning 45 games and being one of the better defensive teams in the league. And it's no disrespect to guys like DeJounte Murray and Derek White and Keldon Johnson. But just top to bottom, it's clear that they need to bottom out here. And based off the moves they made this offseason, it almost kind of seems like they had a conversation with Popovich and were like, hey, we're going to take a year off. We're going to not be very good this year. We need some top-level talent, and then we'll figure it out. I honestly do not think that this might be a bottom 5 roster in the entire league, and that includes teams like Orlando in the Eastern Conference. I know it's odd to think about the Spurs as legitimately one of the worst teams in the conference, but I personally wouldn't be surprised if that's where they end up. And I think most people are, like I said, they're doing the Popovich thing. They're like, hey, they're going to win 40 games. And yeah, maybe that'll happen. But strictly from a talent standpoint, there's nothing on this roster that indicates that this is going to be even an average NBA team this year. I hope I'm wrong, because I do like watching a good amount of their players play, whether it be Keldon Johnson, DeJounte Murray. I'm not very high on San Antonio this year, especially relative to everybody else's expectations. Let me know down in the comment section below, though, what you guys think about some teams that could potentially be a surprise this upcoming season. Outside of these 6 teams, what teams do you think could be a good or a bad, a negative surprise this upcoming season? But that is going to be the end of today's video. Thank you guys very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, be sure to check out the boxes on screen. And if you enjoyed this one, leave a like rating on it as well. with all those things said, I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day. Once again, my name is Tucker, and I will see you all next time.